I'm not sure if anyone else out there will find this story very creepy, but it's certainly the scariest thing that's ever happened to me, so I might as well share. At this point, I like to think that I've been around long enough to realize that there's more crazy shit happening in the world than there are explanations. And I would say this falls into that heading. If anyone out there can actually explain everything away, please do. It would make me feel a whole lot better about the situation. A few years back, I was enlisted in the US Coast Guard, hoping to save lives, stop bad guys, and just be an all-around hero. That kind of mindset that most of the younger guys had at that time. The reality of what I'd gotten myself into was a lot more frustratingly mundane than what I'd hoped for, and consisted of a lot more cleaning and field daying, running basic training drills, and just constantly trying to keep various qualifications up to standard, as well as gain new ones. When this story took place, I was still pretty new to the entire thing. I was in for less than a year, and I'd been stationed at a little small boat station on the coast of Maine. I'd grown up in a small fishing town myself, so I was used to having nothing to do but work, drink, and trying to convince the least unattractive girl at the bar to go home with you. I was hoping for something a lot more exciting, some hotbed of activity like the coast of Florida. That's pretty much the reason why I always volunteered to get underway, whenever the boat was going out for literally anything. It didn't hurt that because I was still new and not actually boat crew qualified, that all the extra time helped me with my required knowledge, as well as making me look good in front of command. So, that day we were going to get underway to practice some Becky drills, or basic engineering casualty control exercises. Also some basic boat crew stuff for me, and generally just spend most of the day out on the water, making sure that we were using some hours. It was a Saturday, so the command was nowhere in sight, and the officer of the deck was a second-class boatswain's mate named Rivard. He decided it was better to get a few of us out on the 47-foot motor lifeboat than just doing some sleep-inducing classroom training. So, the crew consisted of myself, who was a break-in, BM2 Rivard, acting engineer was a third-class MK named Ford, a chick BM3 named Brown, another non-rate break-in named Kovacs, and all of them were pretty good guys and dependable sailors. So it was a good crew on a good day with little wind and no predicted bad weather, even if it was unseasonably cold for November. What a lot of people don't seem to realize is that there is a lot more coastline out there considered haunted than they think. Hell, there's probably just as much out there as there are haunted houses or whatever between all the harbors and rocky coastal areas. I mean, think about it. If a house gets haunted because something bad happened and people died there, then what about all of the countless lives lost in a watery whatever? A horror over the centuries with downed vessels, battles, mutinies, pirating, storms, and everything else. One stretch of coast could potentially have seen more death and murder than given an area of the land it surrounds. There's no shortage of tall tales to be told if you can find an old salt talkative, or drunk, enough to really open up. Not all of them are about the other side either. There have always been tales of, things out in the deeper waters, everything from a kraken to serpents, to mermaids and sirens. And the important thing about stories like those is that they were all based on some little bit of truth. A kraken can be replaced with a colossal squid, and the story wouldn't skip a beat. I'd heard stories about there being a place in our AOR that was supposedly a place where all of the above had happened. It was a small natural cove that couldn't have been more than a mile or two square. Everyone at the station had heard something along those lines, but hardly anyone actually bought into it. Mostly, we'll just jokingly bring it up in a mock spooky voice when a crew was about to get underway. Just basic fucking around with each other. Nothing ever actually happened in the history of the area, and we didn't expect anything to. Which is why BM2 River decided we should live dangerously, as he put it, and head out that way for some of our training. The cove was a little ways out, about 45 minutes one way. On the ride out, we pretty much just joked around and had fun with going over some basic book knowledge. The BM2 was laid back like that. It was pretty chilly out, about 42 degrees with a water temp about the same, or a little lower, so we were out in full dry suits, which made it a little harder to move around, but it did make sure we didn't have to worry much about the chill in the air. Anyway, once we reached the mouth of the cove, Ford threw the life ring off the side and made a mock scream for help. Looked like we'd started a man overboard drills. It was my job to maintain visual of the ring and keep shouting its location in relative degrees, until the boat could swing around and come in for a pickup. But it was just a drill, so I was trying to have fun with it. So after about the 5th time I yelled out of position, I turned back to look at BM2 and say, "Did you get that yet?" in a sarcastic tone, but when I turned back around, the ring was gone. It just wasn't there anymore. Now, these things are designed to be seen. Not only is the ring bright orange, but it has a floating LED light set to flash so many times per second, connected to it with a bit of a bright yellow line. If you lose it for a second, it's not hard to find again. Nor was there much wind at all at the time, so it couldn't have really gotten far from where it was. The water was pretty calm for the ocean, so after a few seconds of not being able to see the ring and not yelling out any location, Kovacs comes over and asks what was up, if I was trying to piss someone off with not taking this seriously at all. So I tell him I lost the ring, and I shot back at BM2 that I lost visual on the ring. Then, after a few minutes, both Kovacs and I still can't find it. The rest of the crew comes up to see if we're blind or just retarded. Then, after a few minutes, both Kovacs and I still can't find it. The rest of the crew comes up to see if we're just blind, but they can't find it either. I tell them that I saw it perfectly at 1 second. Then when I turned around, I just lost visual completely. But they all thought I was lying and that I must have never had a visual, and wanted to make myself look less bad if I was saying I was paying attention at one point and then lost it the next. Even BM2 River didn't seem to believe me, saying that life rings don't just sink, that they're actually made to do the exact opposite, and that I would probably have to explain to the XPO why our 47 is now missing a ring. I called bullshit on that, but he didn't want to hear it and just wanted to get on with the training. I was pretty pissed at the fact that I was basically getting in trouble for lying, so I didn't really notice at first the slight change in the sky. Kovacs asked me if I noticed how the clouds seemed to be getting a bit darker as we went into the cove, but I told him there isn't supposed to be any rain or snow or anything, so it's probably just a little overcast that will let up. I don't know, man. Isn't overcast normally more just gray? He had a point. The clouds did seem darker, more like a thunderhead in color, but like every cloud was a mini thundercloud. I told him he's just letting the stupid stories about this place get to him, being like, "What are you, some kid afraid of bedtime stories?" Asking that kind of shut him up about it. But between the clouds and losing a life ring out there, out of nowhere, I had to admit, I might have been feeling a little creeped out as well. So anyway, we're in the cove with Ford and Brown, having me practice working the tow bit, and Kovacs was with BM2 going over the nav equipment and piloting the boat. The sky had stayed that unsettling blackish color, and I could feel a weird, I don't know, I guess you just have to call it a feeling in the air. Like something wasn't quite right, but there was obviously nothing wrong at the same time. The only thing I could compare it to is if you've ever been standing outside during the eye of a storm. I saw Brown shiver a little and swore, following it up with the rhetorical question about, wasn't it supposed to be good weather today? Being one of the new guys, I didn't want to let that go. I always get ragged on, and I needed to give my share back when I had the chance. I didn't take you as the, damsel in distress type. You letting some clouds and scary stories get to you now? She shot me one of those sarcastic grimaces people give and shoved me in the arm. Just at that time, though, the engines jerked to a complete stop. Just as she shoved me, there was a heart-sinking grinding noise, and the sudden jerking of the boat, mixed with the shove, was almost enough to send me over the rail. The thing is, though, that while I was leaning over the rail, thinking I was about to go over, I could have sworn that I saw a face just under the water. It was so quick that I almost thought I didn't see anything, but I definitely saw what I knew was a pale face, with eyes as black as the clouds were becoming. I was taken aback and still staring into the water when Brown came over and grabbed my arm, asking if I was okay, saying that we need to go meet up with BM2. I was a little shaky in my response, but now that my nerves were calming down from almost falling in, I realized that I had just seen my own reflection in the water, and that it wasn't anything more than that. Mentally scolding myself for being so stupid and quick to assume, I went with Brown to muster up with everyone else. Ford had already gone down into the engine compartment to see what was going on. while the rest of us were in the cabin with BM2. So far, no one knew why the boat stalled, but there was some good news to go with what we already knew. All of the electronics died when the engines went. Plotter, radios, everything. At first I thought we were screwed and couldn't contact the station, but I remembered that probably all of us have our cell phones on us, even if we weren't supposed to. So I asked the BM2 if he'd called in about our situation here yet, and sort of gave a short chuckle and told everyone to check their phones or anything else electronic that we might have. Well, that sent an alarm through me, and I knew what I would see before I even took my phone out. It was dead. Well, great. I'm super glad this is happening, I had to comment. BM2 told me to cut that shit and to make ready the anchor. He said that he'd just done an ops and position check less than 10 minutes before, so they won't even try to contact us for another half hour, which means it'll probably be a few more hours before anyone gets out here to pick us up. I made my way forward to the bow and started rigging the anchor with some line. I toss the anchor over and start paying out line, and I hear what sounds like something swimming along the surface of the water. I stop with the line and do a quick look around me, and I only see small waves around the boat, but nothing else. No seal or anything like I'd expected. I'm starting to feel pretty eerie at this point, so I just want to finish anchoring and get back off the bow, when the line I'm holding is tugged from my hands. It was just a quick jerky tug, enough to make me wonder what the hell just happened when the rest of the line starts getting pulled away into the water. Getting pulled away really fast, actually. It's going too fast, and I'm so freaked out and confused that most of the rest of it's gone before I can even think to move. I managed to wrap the end of it against the Samson post and throw on a few figure eights when whatever was pulling us ran out of line. There was a sickening lurching noise as the entire boat got jerked bow first, at a 45-degree angle downward, and once again, I almost went over. At that point, I'm like, fuck this, and I scramble my ass off the boat. But I did notice that the Samson post is all bent to hell before I'm off of there. The sky's pretty much black now in the cove, but there's still daylight somehow. Kind of like the opposite of a sun shower. All I could think at the time was that they used to call sun showers the devil beating his wife. And what the hell they would call this. So I go into the survivors compartment where everyone's gathered, and I'm just in time to have missed Ford's rundown of the engines. But I hear him complaining about us playing music at a time like this. Brown asked what the hell he was going on about, that we didn't have anything electronic working to play music with. But Ford was still going. Bullshit, I know you were playing some kind of music, I could hear it down in the engines. Just then everyone noticed that I was there, and BM2 wanted to know exactly what the fuck happened while I was up there. I told him exactly what fucking happened, and for the second time that day I was called a liar. Fuck it, I said. Let's go up there and I'll show you I'm not lying. And, lo and behold, there was the post, all bent and messed up with barely any line left on board to secure the anchor. BM2 got a kind of worried look on his face, which matched everyone else around me, and I heard the sound of swimming again. This time, I didn't try to turn to see anything. I just waited a second and asked if anyone else heard it this time. But Ford cut off any response with loudly telling everyone that he can still hear the goddamn music. Like someone singing long notes, not even having much of a fucking tune. We all kind of look at each other for a second before Brown says, MK3, there isn't any music. No one hears anything. Just as he starts to say bullshit again. Wham! The boat rocked. We all look at each other, scared shitless. Wham again. We all come to the same conclusion and book the hell back indoors to the survivors compartment. As we were scrambling along the side of the boat, there was one more wham, and Kavats almost fell over, but Brown grabbed him and steadied him. Once we were all indoors, the pounding stopped. After a minute or two of silence, waiting for it to happen again, Kavats says, Okay, everyone realized that was something hitting us, intentionally, right? BM2 tells him to shut up and that we don't need anyone to make things worse right now. He does say that there's clearly something up right now, and that we all need to take the right precautions. He told Ford to go up and check the anchor line, and make sure it's even a little secure. And for the rest of us to prep some pyro, and he's gonna go check the radios one more time. And when they still don't work, we'll need to send off some flares. He told Ford to go up and check the anchor line, and make sure it's even a little secure. And for the rest of us to prep some pyro. He's going to check the radios one more time, and when they still don't work, we'll need to send off some flares. So Brown, Kovacs, and I break out the pyro kit and start going over it all, making sure it's all still good. It obviously was, we just needed something to occupy ourselves. Brown asked me what I think is going on. I tell her I have no idea, but I've got the worst feeling right now. That things might be a lot worse before they get better. You can just feel it in the air. BM2 comes back and says everything's still shot just like he thought. He told me to go up and get Ford because it should not take that long to check on a line. I had to agree. He's been up there way too long unless something was up. I called his name as I was coming up to the bow, but when I got there, he wasn't up there. I thought that was weird, but maybe he just went around the other side as I was coming up. So I circle back and check for him on the fantail and still don't see him. I get into the survivor's compartment with everyone else and he isn't there. So I ask if he's in the engine room. BM2 asked me what I'm talking about, asking if I found him on the bow. At that point I realized things had just gotten worse, and I tell everyone to go topside because we must have had a man overboard. We all rush up and start yelling his name, looking for any movement in the water. BM2 has the binoculars out and starts doing a search for Ford. After close to 15 minutes, we didn't find anything more than what we had before we started searching. BM2 is clearly frustrated and pissed. Starts blaming me for wasting everyone's time because he's not in the water. I tell him that there's nowhere else he could be, because if he went into the engines, he would have seen him himself. And if he were in the cabin bridge, I would have seen him when I went around. He just continued going off, saying that Ford was wearing bright fucking orange and an inflatable protective floating device. He didn't just fucking sink. And at that point, I remember the anchor line, and my stomach started to turn. I thought to myself, no, he didn't just sink. Not on his own. But BM2 just went for the pyro, saying something like, "Fuck this," and fired off a parachute flare. I was left standing there putting things together in my head. The face I thought I saw, the anchor line being pulled away from me, the whatever it was ramming our hull, and the sound of something swimming. The same sound I realized then that I could still hear now. Something was going on here, and it was more than just ghost stories and weird feelings. Something was here with us. Something was in the water, and it wasn't exactly hiding. I snapped up what you all would refer to as a basic flare, the kind they show in the movies that you just hold and wave around while it burns. I told the BM2 and everyone else to come over with me to the rail and to just watch. I dropped the flare in the water so the burning end was facing us as it went. It went a bit more slow than I anticipated, but within a minute or so, we couldn't see the light from it anymore. I mean, nothing. Quickly, I grabbed another one and did the same thing. Kovacs started to ask what I was doing, but I just said, shut up and watch, because the sound of swimming was still there. And then, just before the light faded, we saw a shadow swim over the light, and it was big enough to eclipse almost the entire time the flare was sinking, just by swimming by. We all backed the fuck up and went down into the compartment. Everyone was scared, but BM2 looked like he was scared shitless, like his skin had turned the same shade as a piece of drawing paper. He just kept whispering, "We can't be here, we have to go, we need to leave, we can't be here anymore," and other things similar to that. I didn't disagree with him either. The first thing I thought of to do was to cut the anchor line. I'd rather drift aimlessly than have a physical tie to whatever was down there. Not to mention continue to be a sitting duck. BM2 had clearly gone bye-bye, so I told Kovacs and Brown what I planned to do, and for them to sit tight. I'd be right back. I only had my small boat crew knife with me, so I knew it might take a minute or two to completely cut the anchor loose. So I went up to the bow as fast as I could, and went to work cutting us loose from whatever was there with us. I was about halfway through the line when, wham, we were hit again. Fuck, it's like whatever's down there knows when we're vulnerable. Another hit, and I still had a way to go before I was done. Wham. They were getting more frequent and more forceful. That last one rocked me back on my heels. Almost done now, just a few more seconds. 2 more hits right in a row. Fuck. Another hit again, but I was done now. We were loose and I could book it back to the compartment. I just need to make it past the side of the boat. And wham. I was in the water. 3rd time's the charm, I guess. As soon as I was in, I realized I could hear music now. It sounded like someone singing long, tuneless notes, like if a person were to try to sing a whale song. And when I saw it, I was out of my mind terrified. It was something just below the surface, not quite breaking the water. The only coherent thought I can remember right then was the word confident. And in hindsight, that was because whatever was coming towards me seemed to actually be confident. It was taking long serpentine strokes, getting to me. Again, in hindsight, things just like a shark or anything else wouldn't take its time. It would go right for you. Whatever this was playing. After a second, I was clear-headed enough to think, please be a shark, please be a shark. Oh God, please be just a shark or a turtle or a shark. God, what is this? It was about a meter away from me when I felt something strong pull me while I remained helpless and screaming. And then I was back on the deck of the 47, soaking wet, but alive. Apparently when the pounding started again, Brown and Kavats came up to make sure I was okay, and they saw me fall in. They were just quick enough to pull me back up before whatever was in the water got to me. And I did make sure to ask them if they saw the same thing I did. They both got really quiet, but they didn't say no. After that, we all hunkered down in the survivor's compartment. BM2 looked a little better, but he was still clearly out of it. Turns out that last pounding actually did us a favor, and ended up inadvertently pushing us towards the mouth of the cove. And not long after that, the rescue crew found us. We were all shaken pretty badly, and not really able to tell the rescue crew where Ford was. All we could do was convince him that he was not in the cove, to not go back into it to look for him. The ride back was quiet, uneventful, and pensive. I did manage to ask BM2 something when I noticed that he was back with us again. I asked him what it was that he saw that made him lose it like he did. He looked me dead in the eye without wavering. He said that when whatever it was swam over the flare, he saw its fin. Only it wasn't a fin, because fins aren't long and slender. Fins don't end in 5 fingers, like whatever he saw had. We never found any trace of Ford.